Why don't we go ahead and get started? I guess for us here, it's good afternoon and good evening. Uh, we want this to be interactive, so please take advantage of using the chat and asking questions, any comments you have. And I think the key thing today, in yesterday's New York Times, Adam Grant had an article. And the article said, essentially, if you think you know what's going to happen over the next 4 years, you're wrong. Talking about how humans are not very good at predicting the future. And that means we can't be future proof, because to be future proof, we would need to know what the future is. But what we can be, and what we're going to talk about today, is about becoming future ready. So for those of you who don't know us, I know you probably saw some things from LinkedIn. Mihaela, if you want to just briefly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Jay. So my name is Mihaela Nica. I'm a leadership and executive coach. I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach. And I'm coming with over 20 years of background in international marketing and Fortune 500 companies. My top strengths, because we'll talk a bit about strengths today, and CliftonStrengths are futuristic, maximizer, deliberative, relator, and significance. To translate this, I'm a person fascinated by tomorrow. I like to work in a way I'm maximizing my strengths and encourage others to do the same. I'm a careful evaluator of potential risk in everything I'm doing. I like to know closely the people I'm working with, and I am a focus to build a legacy in everything I'm doing. 3 facts about myself. As I said, I'm a dreamer. I live more in the future than in the present. I'm very passionate about this. I have worked across my career with people coming from about 100 countries. I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, into international, truly international team. And yes, I'm a dark chocolate addict.
You
Yeah,
got
thank
you
you.
got another one here. And I'm Jay Weiser, Chief Catalyst and Navigator of Jay Weiser Consulting. We got one more person joining. Let me let that person in. Um, so I work with leaders, boards, leadership teams across organizations, across industry. And that's really about how do I help them become future ready so they can not only survive through the turbulence and disruptions, but so they can thrive in that environment. I've developed the 5 leadership superpowers, which is a leadership capability model that guides and enables leaders to do that, to actually thrive in the future, to manage tensions. And I'll be introducing that model in just a couple of minutes. My strengths are individualization, learner, strategic, activator, and maximizer. And what's interesting about this, I call myself chief catalyst and navigator. Activator is really about catalyzing organizations, helping them see what they don't see. So I help unfreeze them so they can act. And individualization is really, you have to know the people, getting close, developing relationships with those I work with. And going back to one of my facts, I have an insatiable curiosity, whether it's about people, places. I can watch something on TV and all of a sudden start learning about some prehistoric animal or some region, and I'll just captivate it. Uh, my parents said I never stopped asking questions. My wife and kids saying the same thing. So, that's carried on. So when we talk about change, I'm sure you've heard the term permacrisis in terms of the environment we're in. It's not just a single crisis or a single disruption. It's numerous global forces. If we think about just geopolitics and global instability, we certainly have our share of it here in the US. And if you think about Europe, the Middle East, Latin America, really anywhere around the world is facing that. We know there are health issues. We've come through a pandemic. There's not a day that goes by where cybersecurity isn't mentioned, economic volatility, social unrest between states, between people, climate change. I was talking to a colleague in the Cayman Islands, and they just had a hurricane. Hurricanes in November are unheard of. So it's with those sorts of issues that we're all dealing with. And at the same time,
we kind of need to deal with internal challenges. And yes, culture, Peter Drucker used to say that culture is strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So culture in the companies, it's at a big risk nowadays, and it's a big challenge for leaders. The way we are doing things and the way we kind of need to evolve doing things to keep up with all the technological advancements, especially AE, with the remote hybrid or in-office work. Also, what is very important is related to the talent attraction, talent retention in the company, how we create an environment where they feel engaged, they continue to learn and upskill. And what is very specific nowadays, it's about this diversity in the workplace. In the past, we used to think of diversity mostly like gender diversity, maybe ethnicity or or cultural diversity. However, nowadays we have generational diversity. It's the first time when we have almost 5 generations in the workplace, in the same team, in the same, probably in the same office. How do we create, an environment where everybody to feel psychological safety, to feel they belong, they feel included? It's a tough task for any leaders nowadays.
So, when we think about the environment, we were going to position this as a poll, but given the small group so far, given the environment, how important do you think it is to become future ready? When you think about your businesses you work with, industries you're in. David, you want to give us a little bit of your perspective?
Hi, Jay. It's great to be with you. Yes, I actually have quite a bit to say about the topic, and really based on, I organized a conference on something similar to this in mid-September for about 500 or so attendees that were CEOs and business owners that came to Atlanta for Connecting and Growing around the theme of perseverance. And I think that ties into how to be future ready. Our definition of perseverance, around which we organized all of the speakers who came, and we had some pretty amazing ones like Peter Diamandis and retired Lieutenant Colonel Martha McSally, who's a former senator from Arizona. The definition we had was about perseverance being, how do we meet a future version of ourselves? And how do we make a daily commitment? The journey to our future self consists of daily commitments we make, daily routines. And the better the routine, the better we arrive at that future version of ourselves. So when we talk about on an organizational level, what it takes to become future ready, it is clearly marking what version of this company, what version of our future self do we want to be meeting? And then the daily commitment to that is all about the execution, the metrics, the monitoring, and the readiness, as you like to say, for the panoramic view that you like to talk about, checking in on that. But if those are the routines, those are good routines that should yield, that should reinforce the commitment that gets you to this future version of yourself or your team or your enterprise.
Thank you. Thank you. Ramona, would you like to share anything?
To unmute. Sorry, I had some issues with the microphone. Yes, my feedback on this one is like very quick. Just thinking about AI, I think it's, just think about one of the oldest changes that are, we are now living and going through. So I think if we are not future ready, I don't think we can cope with what's coming. So for me, it's yeah, absolutely and without a doubt.
And Jim, anything you want to add?
For me, it's an absolute, and I would frame this around unseen competitors and competition. I recently looked, and there are 115 unicorn companies in the New York area. If you review the list, you haven't heard of one of the companies. You know Google, you know Amazon, but you don't know 115 others who are growing at the speed of sound.
Yep, no, that is so true. In an earlier presentation I did a couple weeks ago, I talked about preparing for tomorrow today, because if you wait till tomorrow, you're late. So, when we think about this, future fitness is a major concern. Some recent polls earlier in the year, PwC surveyed CEOs. And almost 50% of them said, if we keep on doing what we're doing, we won't be around in 10 years. I'd even say it's less time. And with executives who are working with boards, only 28% of the executives feel their board members have the right capability. So there's a need for capability building in the C-suite and at the board level. And that group has to work together. And as Russell Reynolds notes here, we need a radically different approach for finding, assessing, developing, and elevating leaders. One of my favorite quotes comes from Future Shock. It's a book written over 50 plus years ago. And it really addresses this idea about existing capabilities not being sufficient. In fact, in some cases, they can actually be dangerous to continue. The illiterate of the 21st century are not those who will not, literate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I think the toughest challenge of those three is unlearning, letting go of the things that are no longer relevant, that no longer work. They might have helped us get to where we are, but they're not going to help us going forward. They served a different time, a different environment. So this idea, I mentioned the 5 leadership superpowers, about a leadership capability model to help leaders prepare for, be able to navigate, and thrive in the future. The superpowers do not replace core leadership skills, but they address the gap that needs to be addressed to become future ready. The superpowers are based on both and thinking versus either or. Instead of saying, I can do this or I can do that. The solution is you need to do both, given the complexity of the environment we're in. The first superpower is being a present futurist. It's somebody who robustly understands the present, who looks at things from different stakeholder perspectives, who is able to zoom in and see detail when they need to and pull back and see the big picture. It's about monitoring trends, early warning signals, paying attention to what's going on in your outside environment, as well as your inside environment. So you can see things sooner, you can anticipate some things, and you can act faster. And it's about how do you integrate the present and future into your decision making so you're making better, more informed decisions. Second is being an experienced learner. So I talked about this idea of learn, unlearn, and relearn. We want to leverage our experience, but we also need to know when we need to challenge it. We need to be okay with other people challenging it. We want we want to leverage what's relevant, but we have to recognize that in an environment that's constantly changing, we need to have a learning mindset. Learning is something continuous. Just because you've got 20 years of experience or you're a senior exec doesn't mean you don't need to learn. Everyone does, from the boardroom to the front line. And learning is about being curious, encouraging and fostering debate, asking good questions, encouraging a diversity of opinion. And I think Mihaela noted about having a psychologically safe environment where people trust each other, where they can be open, they can say things without fear. Third is being a prepared risk taker. It's acknowledging that risk is a part of business. Now, a lot of times people say, okay, if I don't change, if I don't do anything, there's no risk. The opposite is actually true. If you don't do anything, there's actually more risk, more often than not. And it's recognizing, you have a decision. Are we going to play to win or play to not lose? Playing to not lose does not help you grow, does not help you innovate. If you shy away from risks, you're going to fall behind. Now, it doesn't mean blind risk taking. It means taking smart risks, experimenting, piloting different ideas. It's about being more risk aware, risk intelligent, in the sense that don't just think about, what if there's a pandemic or an earthquake or a fire, but think about what are the drivers of your business. So if I'm in the hotel business, I know occupancy is a driver. Well, think about what are the risks to occupancy: economic volatility, travel restrictions, terrorism, conference business. So you start thinking about things more broadly and also thinking about how risks are interconnected. If you had asked me, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, did I think that a barge getting stuck in the Suez Canal could disrupt supply chains around the world? I would have said, nah, it's just the Suez Canal. But now we realize how interconnected everything is. Fourth is being a strategic executor. It's recognizing that strategy and execution are linked. You can't have one without the other. If you have a strategy and you can't execute it, it's a dream. If you're too busy operating without a strategy, you're very busy, but not necessarily going where you want to go. It's about thinking, yes, I have urgent issues that I have to deal with, but always keeping your eye on that longer term goal, making sure you don't make decisions in the short term that impair the long term. So it's having both perspectives in a more balanced manner. And the fifth superpower is being an accountable collaborator. I talk about strategy being a team sport. There is very little that can be done to address the challenges and complexities we face by one person or one area. We have to work across functions, across organizations, across our ecosystems with our partners, our suppliers, sometimes even our competitors. And it's a recognition that teams can be collectively accountable for outcomes. It's hard to say, Jim, that's your job. You're fully accountable for that. When Jim requires all 5 of us to be working together, having a shared common goal in a way that's mutually beneficial. So teams hold their teammates accountable for fulfilling their roles. And when you think about leadership or the board, it's holding that team accountable for achieving outcomes. So leaders don't micromanage. They make sure teams have the right people with the right capabilities. Teams are brought together like special forces teams. Who do you need to get that objective met or that mission accomplished? So when you think about the 5 superpowers, each one supports and reinforces the other. And so present futurist informs what you have to learn and informs what risks you might be facing. If you think about collaboration based on your strategy, who needs to collaborate to achieve these goals? And when you're doing that, you're going to better understand the present and foresee the future. You're going to know what capabilities to build. You're going to be more prepared, more resilient, more able, as David said, to have that perseverance because you know what you need to do, how you need to prepare, the commitments you need to make. You're going to dampen your downside risk, recover faster, and be in a position to pounce on opportunities while others are still struggling. And that's going to increase your probability of success. When you're doing this, you're going to achieve outcomes by being future ready. Customers' needs are anticipated and met. Employees are energized, enabled, engaged, they're productive, they're valued, which makes them more involved in the company. They're more willing to give that extra effort. They're more willing to share information. Partners collaborate because you're working on shared goals. The communities around you are better off. And when those things happen, shareholders are richly rewarded. If those things don't happen, shareholders don't get rewarded. Results aren't sustainable. So you need all those pieces to come together. So we'll touch on this exercise, quickly. If you think about a major challenge your organization has faced, in the last year or so, which superpower was helpful or would have been helpful had you exercised that superpower? And as you think about that, what would have been different if that superpower had been exercised? What what blind spots could have been avoided? Excuse me. Give you a moment to think about that. And, if any of you, want to share, which one would have been helpful? Which one did you use? If you think about some of the challenges your organization is facing. Jim, any thoughts come to mind? You're on mute.
To go back to my analogy about unicorn companies, the recent Deloitte study in technology acknowledged that 60% of these unicorn companies are actively using AI to move faster. This is both a strategic execution and a prepared risk-taking kind of issue that, of course, will be headline news in 2025.
Absolutely. Ramona, and any thoughts come to mind on this?
Well, I'm thinking about this, like being a prepared risk taker, and I think, for example, in case of some changes that the company went through, I think this really was a key. I would say a key capability, because in majority of the situations, in my experience, there was like when a change came, like pandemics, for example, everybody was like, they went with the flow, and very few people really considered the risk, like having an assessment on the risk. When there's a change, there's always a risk. So I think nowadays, with the amount of transformation that we have in big companies, with and not only with AI, but I'm thinking about that because I can feel that this one is going to hit a lot on not necessarily on my company or on me, but on majority, and especially I'm thinking about the jobs. But again, I think, yeah, I've always looked into this part of the change. Okay, what is the risk in case we transform that? What's the risk if we change that? Then always kind of be ready to mitigate the risk. You're not fully prepared anyway. You never, I mean, I don't think there is a magic ball where you can look and see, oh, these are the risks, these are the mitigation, don't worry, you're safe. Every time it's something new comes up, but at least if you have like a big picture or a first kind of, thinking around that, this is what I see a very critical skill in terms of, this superpower in leadership. So of course all are important, but this one came to my mind because I've been working recently with risks, so that is why.
Well, and it's interesting. Part of it is understanding the risk of taking action. It's also understanding the risk of not taking action. And I think, the other part is this idea around adaptability. Building adaptability is a capability that if you're in an organization that can learn, that gets better at this whole idea of learning, then instead of fearing a change, because people know they can learn, their resources, they're going to be supported, they can more embrace the change. And part of it goes back to framing. How do you frame the change? David, any comments you want to add?
Sure. I mean, I've seen when this works. I've seen when it doesn't work. I see a broad, from my perspective, breadth of a lot of fintech companies. And I've been part of some that have succeeded, and then others that have let some of these processes of learning decay. And I can point to one right now that is clearly not being present futurist because of just a lack of incorporating AI effectively into their product roadmap, and they are suffering. Nor have they taken in a lot of the ways to continue learning. When that company was functioning well, when I was actually more actively involved in it, we had regular meetings within the organization of learning that was come together. We'd have an update. Everyone would do a quick update. And then there'd be time dedicated to that meeting to allow for presentations, of which they would circulate and revolve around each of the developers, who would bring just either playful, this is a question, or this is an experiment that I ran and it yielded this. What can we learn from it? Or a direct, more applicable how-to. But the development team would often come up and create these presentations as part of their updates. And that was an effective way to keep learning. I see obviously other firms and other companies that I'm advising that are clearly on the AI and have built solutions around it for fintechs and wealth advisors, and they are thriving. But they also don't have necessarily the full team in place. So it's a lot of people running a little ragged, and you just have to figure out where you are, as a company on a, I love these Deloitte studies, but they're often, looking at Fortune 500, Fortune 50 even, companies that have got layers of management, and how to keep these companies pivoting and moving. It's clearly all about the superpowers, but I work at a level where companies are scaling and things are moving so fast. It's how do we get better at moving fast so we can arrive where we need to go.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need that agility. Yeah, I want to switch gears from the superpowers. Mihaela is going to tell us a little bit about CliftonStrengths and how do we leverage our strengths, our natural talents to apply the superpowers more effectively. Mihaela?
Thank you, Jay. Yeah, well, talking about how leaders can develop those leadership superpowers that Jay was talking about, sometimes this task might be overwhelming, you know, you don't know where to start, what to do. And we thought that CliftonStrengths might give might be a good tool to start with. CliftonStrengths as methodology, it is belonging to Gallup right now. It was developed 60 years ago by a psychologist, Don Clifton. And he kind of looked at personal development in a different way. He tried to flip the question of, you know, how we can develop ourselves in the way of what would happen if we look at what is right with people instead of looking at what is wrong with them and fixating them. The traditional development approach is look at what weaknesses do we have. I mean, we look at what we do good, what our strengths, keep up with the good things, but focus to improve your weaknesses. And in this approach of CliftonStrengths, we flipped the situation. We say, okay, be aware of your weaknesses, know them, know how they come into your way of success, and manage them. But you spend your most time and effort to develop your talent, your native talents into strengths. And the studies done over 6 decades showed that people who focus on their strengths reach the success faster, but they have also more balanced life, more their well-being is high, and they are more engaged in their work. CliftonStrengths, as a methodology, it's an assessment, and out of this assessment, we have 34 themes of talents. We all have those talents in our personality, but in a different extent. And the order counts when we unlock our, you know, our framework, our top of talents. It's like when we decode our DNA of talents. And to give you an example, the probability that another person to have only the top 5 out of 34 theme of talents in exactly the same order as you have, it's 1 in more than 33 million. It's like your fingerprint, if you want. And this is very, very important to understand that each person is unique, and capitalizing on our strengths make us come across authentic and reach the desired results in a better way. If we can move forward, please. When we look, you know, of what is right with us, it's practically, you know, we develop not only the self-awareness, we understand when we are at our best, we understand what we need to be at our best, what we bring and what we create when we are at our best. But more than this, we kind of start to discover and appreciate other people's strengths. I told you earlier that one way to look at the weaknesses in this approach is to manage them. The way we can manage them is by creating complementary partnership with people with complementary or contrasting strengths. And in this way, we also foster a environment where we look at the individual for who he or she is. You know, we appreciate them for what they bring to the team, and this foster this inclusion and environment that we all aim to reach in our organization. Can you move forward, please? Research also showed that, as I told you earlier, people who focus on their strengths are having 3 times better quality of life, 300% better quality of life. And they are 600% more engaged in their job, in what they do every day. This is powerful. Also, in terms of, at the company level, this is, if you want, a business strategy. Yeah, there are companies, and there are big companies like Southwest Airlines, Stryker, Nestle, Estée Lauder. These are big names that implemented on large scale the CliftonStrengths approach. The research showed that the employee engagement grew by more than 23%. The companies experience higher profit, 29%, higher sales rates, 19%, and 72% lower turnover in employees' attrition. So this, again, as I said, it's practically a business strategy that helped the company move to a next level. And here I would like to invite you to make an exercise, just to keep this interactive approach, and try to intuitively connect with your strengths. And I would like to invite you maybe to take a deep breath, something like, and try to think, which was the best day you had at work this year? What made it great? What did you do? With whom? For whom? What did you bring to your team and your organization? What did you appreciate? What kind of support you got from the people around you to be able to have that best day at work? Try to be as specific as you can in identifying all those components that contributed to this great day. I give you a moment or two to reflect upon.
I'll share for a moment. What I think was the best day is when I'm working with clients and we start to make that connection. I trigger a new thought. They see something a little bit differently. And then we can start talking about how do we bring that to actually be, how do we make the change? So for me, it's about having impact. It's about working with senior level folks who have this untapped potential because they haven't figured out how to look at things differently. And in terms of, what does it bring to the team, to the organization? They can see problems in a new light. They can think about how they can approach them in new ways that they hadn't before. And in terms of what I appreciate in others, I think it's that engagement, that willingness to be open, to experiment, to innovate, to try new things. That's kind of what drives me.
Thank you for sharing this, Jay. And my question to all of you would be, how did you feel doing this exercise? Was it easy? Was it difficult? I mean, I'm not asking you to share, all those details that Jay shared, but for me, it's very important to, and what I want you to kind of get aware of, it's how do you feel when you reflect on your past successes? How do you feel connected with you at your best? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Anybody wants to share?
Well, I can share a joke, maybe. I can make
Yes.
this as a joke, like, which was the best day you had at work this year? All days were the best, because if I didn't get fired, means I'm doing my job right. So
Okay.
it's a very good. No, but I was just joking.
Thank
Um,
you.
um, yeah, honestly, I think, and I'm talking for me right now and how I feel, because I'm an HR, so I'm kind of, supportive of other functions, of, I need to be the helper, right, in the organization, even though I have a seat at the strategic table with the business leaders. So I'm happy to see that, HR people are no longer the admin team that is doing only, that admin kind of work with all the bureaucracy behind it, and so, which is great, because we have a saying in the strategy, which provide, I think this gives us the opportunity to really develop some of these key capabilities that we need to be future led. It really doesn't matter the function at the end of the day. But I think, yeah, if I look at my best days, best achievements are mainly related to me being accountable, very consistent in what I do, even if sometimes that really bothers people. Um, and I also have, I like to dose, like results with empathy, because I think due to all this transformation, and if you look into the future, then as future leaders or actual leaders or whatever, as leaders, I think we need to, to have this empathy with us all the time, and it can make a difference. That's something that I've really learned throughout my years at work, that it didn't really matter how the day went, if it was a bad day or a good day, but if you have this, human part of you, building the relationships first, building the trust, um, it really makes a difference, and it can transform your bad day in a good day.
Thank you so much for sharing, Ramona, and being with us. So all those things that I pick up: consistency, result-oriented, empathy. This, if you wonder, these are the clues of talents that you might have naturally. And this exercise, by analyzing our past successes, we come to get those clues of talents that we can leverage and use further, to overcome the challenges we are facing and to replicate those great days. The following question would be, what do you need to have more great days like the one that you mentioned? Thank you for this.
I need time.
Thank you.
More time.
Thank you. Now, if we go, yes, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Now, if we go further, I mean, you did the exercise before, looking at the superpowers. Now, I would invite you to do the same exercise and choose maybe the same superpower or another one. And now, building on the findings that you had, to kind of look how you can develop that superpower, or how to can apply that superpower using those talents that you identified in yourself. And I would like to invite you to see, how do you connect to those superpowers now, when you have some materials to relate with and build on developing that superpower. Is it easier? Is it harder? Is it neutral? How would you feel? I'll give you a moment to reflect on this. any thoughts, anything that come, across your mind and you might want to share? Anybody? Maybe Yams or David?
Well, I work with teams a good deal of sort of mid-market growth companies, and this feeling of accountable collaboration is so critical across roles. So we talk about values from the standpoint of getting everybody on the same page with where we're going. We talk about accountability and communication that's clear. And we talk about healthy cultures where someone's not afraid to give feedback. So these obviously relate very much to, improving the accountable collaborator kind of feeling among team members. And you almost can feel the lift off when they, in fact, embrace these thoughts.
Thank you. David, any thoughts?
Yeah, I am a huge proponent of CliftonStrengths. So, Mihaela, when you talk, I'm constantly nodding. And I do believe in what James mentioned about getting to, the core values, so we understand our mission, and so that everyone starts to believe in. And the experience I bring back in particular that I'm referring to is having led the local chapter of EO when I was privileged to be its president, the entrepreneurs organization, about 150 members, and I had about a 20-person board. And my sole purpose on that board was, how do I empower these other entrepreneurs taking time away from their business and families to serve the rest of the chapter in their functions, whether it's learning, whether it's finance, whether it's communications and such. And I thought long and hard, because I'd better have a purpose, and I'd better have a set of values that I want to lead with. Otherwise, I know I'm going to lose people throughout a whole year's commitment, as I had seen previous presidents do. And so I came up with a strong theme. It had a series of values underneath it, and it was all built around how can anybody serving the board in this year attach themselves to a cause greater than themselves and know that they're going to make an impact. And then each day when they look themselves in the mirror, there's only about maybe 30 seconds to 2 minutes where, amongst all their other things in their life, when I get 2 minutes of reflection and thought about the organization, they're quickly reoriented. It's like, yes, this year's theme is this, and this is why I'm doing this. And now I just suddenly have an idea about how I'm going to help along the way. I think that's exceptionally important. Only then can you then break up, like we did during the year when we had certain problems to solve, by using CliftonStrengths. Here are my results. and being able to say, okay, look, you're an executor. This is great, but you know what? Let's put a team together and solve renewals, right? So let's not put 5 executors in here. Let's bring someone who is a communicator. Let's put someone who's a relator, and let's put somebody who's an execution person, and then somebody strategic and so forth that we need to agree, for instance, and put them together, and they're the team that's going to help solve this.
Thank you so much for sharing this experience. Thank you, David. Jay, back to you.
So when you think about this, I think you guys have seen and told us in your own words about the value with the superpowers, with the strengths. Ramona, you talked about this idea of being a prepared risk taker, and you talked about one of your strengths being empathy. That if you're more empathetic and you understand that people see that there's a risk, you can make them more comfortable actually innovating or doing something different. So you start to see how the two pieces come together. So one of the things, I want to talk about it, and we'll have some time for questions. And I know Mihaela and I can stick around a little bit longer. But one of the things that we're doing is offering a boot camp. And that boot camp is going to look at how do you harness and develop the superpowers and your strengths together. Because I think the two parts working hand in hand help us achieve our potential, bring out our best at the same time, work better as a team. And the idea is we're going to do this over 8 modules. Just as our discussions have been today, it's meant to be interactive. We're not going to be lecturing, and it's really about learning from each other. We're going to start in early December. We're going to have 2 modules a month with the goal to end in the middle of March. Sessions will be about 90 minutes. Some might be a little longer, a little shorter, but again, it's meant to really get people engaged, solving and addressing real challenges, real problems, being able to pounce on real opportunities. We're going to have one-on-one coaching. So you'll be meeting with Mihaela and I potentially 3 times to go over your CliftonStrengths. I have an assessment called Are You a Future Ready Leader? So looking at your present superpower capabilities. In the 3rd session, we'll be working with us on what are your next steps? How do you bring this to your organization? How do you share this with others? In terms of who should attend, current or aspiring board directors, CEOs, C-suite leaders, that can be at an enterprise or a business or a regional level. When you think about senior leaders and members of their team. So Ramona, you talked about you work strategically, you're a business partner, you meet with that executive team. Bringing an intact team is an option. If you're a CHRO or a people leader, you getting a taste of this and experiencing it, is a way to pilot and say, is this going to work in my organization? Or if you're in something like EO or YPO or some of these other groups, is this something your membership might be interested in? And it also applies to high potentials. If you're thinking about leadership development, future leaders need to be future ready. So, it's going to help people in terms of how they professionally develop. We're going to keep the class size small, ideally less than 12. So that way we can have the type of discussion we're having today.
Okay, in terms of the bootcamp structure, we developed those 8 modules in the following way. We'll have 2 introductory modules. In the first one, we will go in deep, presenting and describing the 5 leadership superpower and the CliftonStrengths. To kind of give the participants a bit of introduction. And to get to know each other as well. In the second module, we will work with all the participants to start to understand their strengths. Ideally, between module 1 and module 2, the participants will take the assessment, the 2 assessment, the CliftonStrengths assessment, and the being a future leader assessment that Jay developed. And in the module 2, we kind of design and work with each person strengths, helping them, doing some exercises, helping them to understand and connect with their strengths and understand how to practically use them. In the following modules, we will start to take each and every superpower, and we will go in deep, one by one, helping people to connect with it, understand it, and how they can develop this superpower building on their strengths. And the last module, module 8, as Jay said, it's tying everything together and putting, an action plan for all participants to take with them to continue and apply what they learn in their activity. Next slide, please. to give you here a bit of an overview of how each model would look like, I took the module of the present futuristic. So we'll start with a short presentation, 30 minutes, not more than this, where we introduce the key capabilities of this superpower, discuss why it's important, share some example of business leaders demonstrated these capabilities, and the rest of the module, the 60 minutes, we will do 3 practical exercises. Visioning exercise where participants would work in pairs, identifying future trends in their industries. Then we will tie them with the strengths they have, each and every one of them have, how to leverage those strengths to kind of be able to cope with these trends they identify, and to build this present futuristic capability, and maybe to take a business case scenario or to build again on their challenges, and make a plan of how to use the superpower to be more how should I say, to be able to make better decision and get better results ultimately.
And I think one of the things to mention, depending on who's in the session, each session is going to vary a little bit because it's going to be based on, issues that you bring up, problems that you're trying to solve. So, we're very participant focused in terms of, how we're going to do this, how we're going to talk about this. The other thing, with the boot camp, you get the 2 assessments, you have the classes, you have the 3 coaching sessions around the strengths, future ready leader capabilities, and action planning. And then as part of that, you're going to have access to curated content in terms of readings, videos, LinkedIn live sessions, articles we've read. And in fact, Ramona, I'm going to send you an article I wrote for HR Congress, which talks about the CHRO, the people leader's role in developing future readiness. We'll have office hours, and the recordings will be available. In the slide deck will also be available. I know we're going through this a little quickly, but by completing the boot camp, you're going to be able to leverage your strengths, lead with confidence when you're in uncertain environments, how to apply the superpowers, how do you enhance your team engagement and collaboration, how do you cultivate a future-ready organization? And how do you, as I talked about earlier, create value for customers, employees, partners, and shareholders? In terms of investment and value, if you think about the different components, the coaching, the course, the assessments, the content, easily from a market perspective, worth at least $6,000. Your investment and those who participate, it's about completing the assessments. It's being engaged in the same way you were today with your time, attention, engagement. What you put into the sessions drives what you're going to get out of the sessions. We talked about limiting class size to 12. Your investment is $1,875, which, if you go back to the regular price, is 50% off. And you think about your return on investment in terms of the value you're getting, but also what you'll be able to do, the value you will personally develop by being a better leader. So in terms of next steps, and we're going to be having other information sessions like this, is, schedule a short call with us. Get on the list so you're on the priority list for when registration opens. If you scan that QR code with your phone, you can take our complimentary Future Ready Are You a Future Ready Leader assessment to kind of get a taste of what that looks like ahead of time. we have our email addresses, LinkedIn information, and access to our calendar. So we'll make sure if you're here that you'll get this as well. So, at this stage, we want to open it up again for questions. I know we've covered a lot. So again, do reach out to us. If you think about yourself, if you think about others in your organization, others in your network who you think, should know more about this, we're going to post the video from today. So, encourage folks to take a look, see if this is something, they'd be interested in that will help them develop more professionally to become a future ready leader. So with that,